Hi, this is Mr. Urrego. Today we're going to solve a solve and graph compound inequalities. First of all, why compound inequalities? Because we have two inequalities here in one. Alright, so we're combining two inequalities into one only. Now, how can we tell if it's compound inequality? Because I have one inequality symbol here and one inequality symbol there. Alright, my first inequality will be from here all the way up to before the second inequality. So here it'll be negative 3x minus 12 greater than or equal to negative 15. The other inequality will be starting from here right after the inequality symbol up to the end. Negative 3x minus 12 is less than or equal to 12. So when I have two inequality symbols into one, it's a compound inequality. In this case, is the type is an and inequality, and that came out really wrong. So it's an and inequality. Why? Because the x is in the middle between the two inequality symbols. Alright, so the idea right now is to solve this. So let's proceed to solve this. I'm going to erase here on the bottom so we can move ahead. Now, because my x is in the middle, between the two inequality symbols, what's happening is that I have two inequality symbols. Therefore, my inequality is divided into three different pieces. One middle, one right, one left. Again, the two symbols divide the whole thing into three pieces. One in the middle, one on the right, and one on the left. So every time you're solving an equation, normally what you do on the right side, you do on the left side, right? So you keep the equation balanced. In this case, I have three sides. So whatever I do in the middle, I have to do on the right, I have to do on the left. Alright, so let's proceed. So I want to leave the x by itself. My first step will be to get rid of the negative 12 by adding 12. Whatever I do in the middle, I do in the right side, I do in the left side. Okay, in this case, I think it's coming opposite. So this is going to be your left side and this is going to be your right side. Okay, so the idea is do in the middle and do on both sides as well. So negative 12 plus 12 is going to cancel out. I'm going to bring down my negative 3x. The inequality symbol stays the same on both sides. And here, negative 15 plus 12 is going to give me negative 3. Here, 12 plus 12 is going to give me 24. All right. Now, I have to cancel the negative 3 because the negative 3 is multiplying the x. The way to cancel is by dividing by negative 3. Everywhere, the middle and both sides. Now, there's one difference between inequalities and equations, and here comes the difference. Every time I'm dividing or multiplying by a negative number, my symbols, my inequality symbols flip, they switch. So, from being, I'm going to flip them. That is going to change the direction. Okay? So that's what's going to happen. Every time I'm doing inequalities, and I divide by a negative number, my inequality symbols will flip. Okay, so other than that, I just need to solve the same way that I always do. Negative 3 divided by negative 3, positive 1. The negative 3 cancels with the negative 3, and I have an x. 24 divided by negative 3 is going to be negative 8. Okay, now in this case, I notice that I have a negative and a 1. So I have to organize. This. Okay, that means I have to bring the negative 8 over here and the 1 all the way to the right, because I need to follow the same order that I have on the number line. If I'm doing this on the number line, the negative 8 will be on the left side and the 1 will be on the right side. Okay, so that's the order that I want to keep. Because I solved it here and the 1 is on the left and the negative 8 is on the right, I have to flip the whole thing. I bring the negative 8 here and I have to bring it with the symbols. Okay, if you notice, x is greater than or equal to negative 8. Here, x is greater than or equal to negative 8. So when I'm flipping an inequality, I have to make sure that I flip all the symbols as well. Okay, I bring the values, but I flip the symbols. So here's my answer. I have negative 8 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 1. X is in the middle. So again, this is an and inequality and compound inequality. In the beginning I said we're going to solve and graph. So I have my number line. I brought it already down the -8 and I brought down the 1 as well. Okay, so when we graph and we graph one inequality at a time. My first inequality that I'm going to graph is this, all the way up to here. So I'm going to read always from the x. X is greater than or equal to -8. So I'm going to come over here to -8 and I always put a circle. If my inequality symbol has an equal underneath, that circle is going to be shaded. Okay, and let's read that again. X is greater than or equal to -8. I go to -8 and we said that x, the values of x are greater than. Values are greater than -8, -7, -6, -5, 0, any positive numbers. So we understand that my values of x are going to the right. Okay, before I draw my graph, my line all the way to the right, okay, I'm going to go to the other side. And now let me do the other inequality. The second inequality that I have here is starting from here, from x, I'm going to read x is less than or equal to 1. So I'm going to go to 1, open circle, and then I check the inequality symbol. Because the inequality symbol has an equal underneath, then this circle is going to be shaded. If I didn't have that equal, if I didn't have this equal over here, then it will be open. It wouldn't have a shade on the inside. But my problem originally had an equal underneath, therefore I need to shade that. Now let's read it again. X is less than or equal to 1. X is less. A number that is less than 1, 0, and any negative. So my inequality goes to the left. Okay, so far I have my shade. Now something that we need to understand is when I'm graphing an and compound inequality, I always have to think about the intersection of the two graphs. So my graph is going to the right from the -8 all the way to the right, and then the other side is going from 1 to all the way to the left. The part that's going to be intersecting is going to be between the two numbers. So my final answer is this is the graph from -8 to 1. Okay, something that we can add on here is they will always ask me also, or sometimes, not always, to write my answer is in interval notation. So I already solved my inequality, which is this is the solution of the inequality. Okay, having the x by itself. So this is the solution. This will be the graph. Okay, having this is your graph of the inequality, right? And then they can also ask you for the interval notation. Rewrite my answer in interval notation. How do I write my answer in interval notation? I come over here and they're saying these are the values of x between -8 and 1. So interval notation is I come over here and I write my left value, and it didn't come out that really nice. Okay, so I'm going to write my two values, where I start my graph and where I end my graph. Okay, so my answer is going to be between -8 all the way up to 1. I come over here to the graph. If I see that it's shaded or that my inequality symbol has an equal underneath, then I'm going to use a bracket. If, again, on the 1 it has an equal underneath, or my graph is shaded, I'm sorry, my 1 is shaded, then I need to use a bracket. What is the other option? Technically I'm done, and this is your interval notation. Okay, that's your interval notation. This is your graph, and let's put it with green. This is your graph, And this will be your solution to the inequality. The solution. One thing that I want to show is, let's pretend, and we're done with this problem already, okay? But I want to add something that also we understand when is going to when is the bracket going to change. So let's pretend that my graph, instead of having that, my graph was between -8 to 1. But instead of having, let's put an equal underneath over here. So let's pretend the only thing that I'm changing is I'm not putting an equal on this side. All right. So when I go to my graph, I come over here to my graph, and it says, all right, -8. I'm going to put a circle, and then I go check my inequality symbol. Because the inequality symbol does not have an equal underneath, then that's going to stay like that. It's going to stay open. I'm not going to shade it. I come over here to the 1. I put a circle. Because I have an equal underneath, then it's going to be shaded. Okay? And as we notice, my answer is going to be between the two values. So my graph is going to be between the two values. Okay? Again, this is a different example of the one that we did already. It's just to make sure that we understand what's going to happen when there's no equal on my inequality symbol. So I have my inequality solution. I have my graph already. And now I want to write the interval notation on this one. Same way. Interval notation, I start at -8. I end up my graph in 1. Okay? And now I check. On the 1, it's shaded. Therefore, it has a bracket. Shaded or equal, it has a bracket. On this side, there's no equal. Therefore, it's open. It's not a solid circle, it's an open circle. That's how I call it. Because there's no equal and it's open, then instead of a bracket, I put a parenthesis. So, when it's open, I put parenthesis. When it's closed, when it's closed circle or shaded, I use bracket. Okay, that goes for my interval notation. And that's it. Thank you.